Hey, let's see here if we can get anybody to pay any modicum of attention to me after my rant last night on my way home from work. I don't know if this is going to become a regular thing or not, but there's certainly a lot brewing in the world for me to feel the need to do yet again another drive time rant with TC. That should be a new thing that I do on Facebook. So last night's drive time rant with TC was downloaded and then re-uploaded to YouTube, so that'll be premiering on YouTube here in a little while. So if you guys would like to share that, I'd appreciate the drive, pun intended, to my YouTube channel. See if I can gain a little more traction there. So yesterday, Matt Walsh shared, posted, tweeted, retweeted, challenged that Marjory Taylor Green, having gone on with Tucker Carlson, is advancing legislation that is going to, at the federal level, make it illegal for parents and doctors and nurses and other people to allow their children to be medically, surgically transitioned from whatever sex they're born as. She wants federal legislation for that. And what Matt said was every Republican needs to get behind this legislation for Marjory Taylor Green, MTG, or everyone will know they're a coward. And of course, then I saw massive amount of people, especially on Twitter, sharing this information, sharing this challenge. And I was tagged in Twitter, mentioned in Twitter in one of these, and my response was, I dare anyone to call me a coward. I do not support this legislation at the federal level at all. I'm adamantly opposed to it, and I said because I am a small government type, this decision belongs in the hands of the state, not at the federal level. And that any legislation at the federal level seeks to ultimately empower an already overly empowered federal state to have even more control over the lives of people and empower even more federal agencies and federal law enforcement to take even more control over us and have their way with us. And the feedback that I got from people immediately was not, wow, good point. It was basically that I'm wrong and a coward, and that I must want, and not everybody, but I received private messages and things like that, that I must not care about these kids being, transitioned and whatnot. And nothing could be further from the truth. I'm adamantly opposed to children having this done to them. And as my friend and podcaster, my friend Joshua Slocum, who hosts Disaffected, has said that he sees many of the traits of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, especially the mothers who work towards this in their children's lives. And so I am opposed to this, philosophically, spiritually, morally, ethically, all of that. I'm opposed to it. But I am also philosophically and politically consistent. Now, that doesn't mean my views haven't changed over time. They very much have changed over time. We all go through a metamorphosis. We all go through changes. We all go through ideological shifts. Some of us go through minor ideological shifts. Some of us go through major shifts. Some people are constantly shifting one way or the other. They move more than the Overton window moves. But to be theologically and philosophically, or not theologically in this case, but to be philosophically and politically consistent is to maintain your views regardless of where the fight is taking you. Now, there again, that doesn't mean you can't have your views changed. But what you cannot do is assert on one end of the argument, I'm against authoritarian despotism and tyranny, when it is the leftist regime of the Biden administration doing it, but I'm all for imposing my will on everyone else through the threat of the force of the state when it's a decision I agree with. That is an untenable position, ladies and gentlemen. Authoritarianism is authoritarianism. Is authoritarianism. I refuse to be okay with authoritarianism when it's backing up my position. When I so adamantly oppose authoritarianism when it's coming for me. I don't want the federal state to have any of that power at all. And I want the state to have an even marginally more than the federal state does, but all of that power should reside at the most local of levels as possible. And giving the federal state the ability to tell people this is illegal and we're going to enforce this on you is philosophical inconsistency if that's your position as a conservative or as a Mises Caucus style libertarian. We cannot any longer be okay with this. We can't. I am a free speech absolutist. I am a Second Amendment absolutist. I am not going to compromise on those things. But along with that then comes a consistency in clinging to the Constitution and being a constitutional originalist and saying, no, I'm going to stand on the Constitution. I had somebody argue with me, and I respect their argument. Make your argument, bro. I'm good with that. But made the argument. Well, the American War, and people, can we please stop calling it the Revolutionary War? We didn't fight a Revolutionary War. We fought a war for independence. The French fought a Revolutionary War. We fought a war for independence. And if you can't see the difference between the two, you need to get back and study history. But the American War for Independence predates the Constitution. Only in theory, ladies and gentlemen. Because the American War for Independence rose out of the political and philosophical theory and reasoning of men like Adam Smith and men like John Locke and Samuel Rutherford. So when you have Lockean and Rutherfordian and Smithian understandings and philosophies behind you, you didn't need the Constitution to come to a place where you needed to throw off the chains of tyranny of Great Britain. You didn't. What you needed was to throw off the chains of the tyranny of Great Britain, and then, because you've thrown off the chains of tyranny of Great Britain, write a document that doesn't grant liberty, that doesn't grant freedom, that doesn't grant all of the things that we see in the Bill of Rights, but instead ensconces them, enshrines them, and insists that we know that these natural rights, or negative rights, if you will, come from the God of nature. Which is what gave rise to the American War for Independence, philosophically and culturally. Period. And I'm going to stand on that. I am not going to bring the power of the federal state or any other state down on my opponent because they disagree with me. Do I want kids transitioned? No, but I don't want the federal government standing over somebody with a gun saying, you will not do this. I want that decision to be made where it should be made, which is at the local level, as local as you can get it. And what we saw prior to the rise of the federal tyranny during the American Civil War was strong decentralized state government with strong decentralized municipal government with strong decentralized community government, period. It was only through the means and the justification of Abraham Lincoln during the American Civil War that we saw an ever-increasing centralized federal power that did not, and I'll say this again, did not free a single man. It may have abolished the slavery of African Americans. It may have abolished the slavery of African-born Africans in the United States, but it did not abolish the enslavement of all men in the United States. The North winning the Civil War only manifested slavery for all mankind in the Republic, because the federal government proved that they had the guns and the power to make every single state do what they wanted to do. Now that has shifted and it has modified over time, so that now instead of the threat of force, they have the threat of withdrawing support. Oh, you don't want to change your speed limit? You don't want to enact a seatbelt law? You don't want to enact different driving regulations? You don't want to enact this? You don't want to enact that? We'll withhold funding. And we're far past the time now where individual states and individual counties and individual cities need to raise the middle finger to every subsequent higher power, if you will, within that hierarchy. Flip them the bird and say, cut off our money, that's fine, we'll build our own damn roads. Oh, you're going to send in federal law enforcement, we'll arrest them. Oh, you're going to send in state investigators, we'll arrest them. You want us to enforce what? You want us to enforce gun laws? No, we won't. That's nullification, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't have to lead to a civil war. Imagine a group of people standing behind a constitutionally minded local city council and a local city mayor and a local sheriff. Imagine all of us constitutionally minded people gathering together and standing behind and supporting people like that. And then the federal government says, we're going to demand that you enact red flag laws across the entirety of the United States, and we're going to make the states enforce this, and then every single county government and every single sheriff and every single city council has strong, patriotic, or constitutional originalists standing behind them and saying, we're not going to obey, come make us. The problem is, conservatives are weak-kneed. And I said that last night about this blind idea that you have got to stand behind law enforcement. You've got to maintain your relationship with law enforcement. BS. Law enforcement needs to maintain their relationship with you. They need to be worried about you. Well, the federal government and the state government, the federal state and the state and the county state and the city state, all of them, they all need to be watching and saying, we don't want to piss off the people. We don't want to do that. We don't want the people mad at us. We stand behind our local sheriffs, the good ones, if you can find one anymore. We stand behind local law enforcement and say, nullify the federal government. They don't have the authority to enact red flag laws. And that's the thing. As conservatives, as traditionalists, we would be outraged if the federal government told the states they had to do something. But boy, when it's something that we want done, we're okay with the power of the federal state coming down on people we disagree with. Should doctors be penalized for transitioning minor children? Absolutely. Let the states decide that. Or let the local county decide that. Or the local city. But do you really want to continue to empower a strong federal government, centralized federal government that gets to pass these edicts from on high telling the states what they will and will not do? Is that what you want? Is that really what you want? And if you're okay with it, don't tell me about how small government you are. Don't tell me about how constitutional you are. Don't tell me about how strong you are on the principles that made this republic what it is, because it's your compromise that has led to the demise of this republic that you claim you love and want to preserve. It's not the republic you want to preserve. It's your lifestyle that you want to preserve. And you're okay with tyranny as long as it's directed at your opponents or your enemies. That tyranny you don't mind. The tyranny of the popular opinion you're okay with. Until the popular opinion shifts and that tyranny is directed at you. I won't stand for it. I won't be part of it. And I don't want to be part of any organization that is okay with it. Think about it, friends. If they can force doctors to go to prison for transitioning a child, or take children away from parents for it, at the federal level, I'm not saying anything about the state or county levels, if the feds can do it to you, then they can do it over your guns as well. And they will. And you won't have anything to say about it. Because you've already said you're okay with tyranny.